In my aims to try live a more intentional and minimalist lifestyle, I've come across some sustainable and good practices or habits that I've imposed that have made this plant journey much more enjoyable for me. My name is Nick, an architect and plant enthusiast, and I've been keeping plants for about the last 6 or 7 years. So today I'm going to share with you 8 habits that anyone can do that is just going to make their plant journey be a lot more seamless in their lifestyle and become a really intentional, curated space as opposed to a lot of those messy jungles that you see out there. See, the first habit is to respect the interior design flow. Now, it's easy to just go buy a bunch of plants and try to shove them in your house, but when you start inviting guests over and the first thing that greets them is one of your monstera's leaves hitting them in the face, it's not quite the vibe. So what I'm trying to say here is this habit is more about taking a step back, looking at your space, seeing where the light sort of falls, and using that as analysis to kind of begin placing plants and deciding how you're going to be creating your space or curating your space. See, this is going to make your space feel more planned, and you're going to be using plants as a design tool as opposed to a sort of overbearing hobby that you might have. And in an age where minimalism is quite a key point, well, especially for me, it's going to make your space just have that really calming and pure aesthetic. The next habit is to keep the future in mind when planning or designing your iteration of plants. Because right now it seems like that cutting that you have fits so beautifully on your windowsill. In a few months' time, it's going to overgrow that area, right? And if you have a shelf like me, eventually you're going to have plants fighting for light and sort of mashing in a sort of jungle-like setting. Now, not that that's a bad thing, but it can become a bad thing. And it can make watering a pain, it can make pest problems also quite the issue. So by keeping the future in mind, we can sort of start to plan, okay, once your plants start to become this amazing thing that you with your mad plant skills have created, you can now showcase the plant better. You can put it in a spot that it's appreciated and not necessarily hidden in the background or in this jungle shelf that you have. The next is the 180-day reset. See, if you're fortunate enough to have an outside space and also to be in a climate that can tolerate some tropical plants during the summer times, it's probably best to put some of those plants outside. And this kind of rule allows you to change or mix up your space twice a year or every 6 months. Now, having this reset is going to allow you to strategically move and place things around and create new layouts. Every time you have guests coming over, they'll see new things, and new things will be promoted, and the spotlight will be on different plants in different stages. I think it's a good thing to keep in mind, and it can keep things interesting and forever changing. And it's going to become a tool where your home and the life of your house is truly alive in the sense that things can move around. And to move a plant is quite easy, but I think it makes the whole design of your space just that little bit more interesting, and there is a sort of life to your interior decorating. As the sun starts to set here, I like to think of this as the zero tech hour. So once a week, you spend 1 hour with all your plants, interacting with them, taking care of them, and really being a good plant parent, right? So it's going to make your hobby a lot more calmer. Remember, no phones, you detach from sort of the internet and all these screens that we're faced with these days, and you're going to be calm with your plants and sort of detach. It's very grounding. This is something that I do once a week. I obviously look after my plants a bit more than that, but if I can dedicate that 1 hour per week, it saves me a lot of time. It's the time where I repot. It's the time where I check up on some plants that aren't doing so good, and it's just magical. The zero prop rule. Now, I find myself in and out this rule, but to me, lately, it seems like propping your plants too much is a bigger negative than it is a positive. Because slowly but surely, if you keep propping, your house will be filled with these ugly jars and their single leaves. And until you give them away or either sell them or something, you're sitting with this. And another negative is that it stops plants like this from being 6 months ahead of where they should have been, right? So this is the plant that I propped, and you can see it really was fantastic, much higher than this. And for me, I think overpropping is something that it's fun to do for the time being, but it eventually ruins your space and stops your plants reaching their full capacity or their full potential. Now I'm not fixed on this rule. If I have friends that are looking for some plants and I happen to have an opportunity, I will still propagate, but I think it's more about only propagating when there's really a strong reason to do so. The next is to not be afraid of bringing some wild into your home, whether that's mounting a staghorn fern internally on one of the walls or perhaps a tree. I think here is where you can be a bit experimentative, right? So a lot of us keep tropical plants and it's all very neat and curated, but I think there's room in the hobby for some wild, so to speak, right? Whether that's an indigenous plant that can grow indoors, that you do bring one in and you grow it. For me, I'm in love with staghorn ferns, and mounting one in sort of this kind of space really just brings that wild edge, but if you do it very carefully and thought out, then it becomes quite a conversational piece and it just ties everything in together. Because like me, you're a plant person. What I'm saying to you is I'm encouraging you to go get some wild, go bring it inside. Okay, we're almost there. The next one is, and I'm sure you can agree with me, is intentional buying. Now, I'm not stopping you, and I certainly still do buy plants, but my sort of habit here is to just take your time with the purchases. See first of all what you need in the space. Go get some sort of short list, put it in your cart, really think about it, see how it would be in that space. Can it maybe survive there? Those kind of things. Now, if we're intentional about that, it'll save us a lot of money, a lot of heartache, because unfortunately, quick dopamine hits are fun for the time being, but 6 months down the line, that plant is outside, it's covered in pests, and you've not sort of progressed the sort of look that you're going for. The next is actually a Nordic principle. It's the 8 by 8 by 8 rule. So that's 8 hours of work, 8 hours of rest, and 8 minutes of calmness, right? So I think here is where you should really interact with your planty setup that you've so well created, and to just take a moment, take 8 minutes, grab a coffee, sit next to your plants, watch them, be in the sun if you can, hopefully, and just admire the hard work and the progression of the hobby that you've perfectly and carefully created. Guys, thanks for watching the video. I'm sure if you can see, and you're a long-lasting subscriber, you can see that I've moved houses. So there's a bit of a mix-up. We're really busy for the last 3 months, but things are slowly coming together. And I've got so much more intentional design-related content for you guys. So if you like that kind of thing, stick around, consider subscribing, and have a good week. I'll see you in the next one.